Mike Rogers, chairman of the House Intel Committee, is saying goodbye to Congress after 14 years in Washington. What the move means for that committee, with former chairman Pete Hoekstra at the top of the program.
Big donors already adding to the war chests of super PACs in this year's election cycle. But are these donations a blow to the integrity of our elections? Josh Orton is the senior advisor to Progressives United, and he offers his perspective later this hour.
And 26 bodies have now been discovered in the wake of the Washington mudslide, but officials are keeping the official death toll at 17 until those bodies have been recovered. Newsmax correspondent Morgan Thompson joins us for the latest on the tragic events in Oso, Washington later on in the show. America's Forum continues right now. And welcome back to America's Forum here on Newsmax TV. I'm John Bachman, sliding in for the second hour.
Yeah, good to have you back in the saddle, Johnny B. I'm J.D. Hayworth, and our big news today comes out of Washington, a political earthquake as House Intelligence Committee Chairman Mike Rogers says goodbye to Congress. The Michigan congressman announcing that he plans to leave when this term is completed, leave the Congress altogether to host a national radio talk show. Rogers said in a statement that he had a career before politics and always planned to have one after. And of course, Mike Rogers joined us in hour one talking about the opportunity to go into radio. But what does this mean overall for the Intelligence Committee, for the House Republicans, and for Mike Rogers? And a good guy to talk to about that is another Michigan Republican who also served as chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, Congressman Pete Hoekstra. Pete, thanks very much for taking time to be back with us here on America's Forum.
JD, it's always good to be with you and with John. Thank you.
Great to hear from you, Pete. Let's go ahead and get started. I mean, I guess I'm going to step out of the way here because both you guys know what this means. JD, after Congress, you went into talk radio. Chairman Hoekstra, of course, former chairman of that same committee. So you guys take it away and tell us what this is going to mean for the future of our intelligence.
Well, let's just start, before we get to public policy, Pete, what about the personal issues here? What do you make of Mike deciding to hang it up after 7 terms and in that powerful job as the House Intelligence Committee chairman? The decision as it stands right now, did it surprise you?
It did surprise me. That is absolutely the best job in Congress, and to be leaving it at this point is surprising. Like I said, it's the best job in Congress. He could have it for another 2 more years. He's in the middle of cleaning up the whole mess with NSA. Hopefully they were going to pursue the Benghazi investigation much more seriously. There's been some questions about that. You've got 188 members of the Republican Party who have signed on to legislation to have an independent investigation, independent of the committee structure on Benghazi. So there's a lot of stuff flowing around here, and let's see what shakes out over the next couple of weeks.
Well, Pete, as you mentioned that, and this really gets into public policy, the future of the House Intelligence Committee, with so many important issues that you just articulated, what happens internally now with the transition that will happen at the end of the term? Or is Mike still in a position to deal with this, having the gavel with those areas you outlined, Benghazi and the rest?
Well, there's a couple of things that happen. Number one, I think that Mike and the work that he's been doing with Dutch Ruppersberger enables him to probably pass legislation that reforms the NSA program and allows that to move forward in a way that I don't think will be as effective as what it has been in the past, but will alleviate the concerns that people have about American civil liberty. So I'm optimistic that they may get that done. I think in terms of what happens with the Benghazi investigation, I think that there's probably a good possibility, even though there's only a few months left in this term of Congress, that the final pieces will come together to have an independent investigation on Benghazi. the third thing is you're not going to see the kind of jockeying for the next chairmanship. This is not a competition where you go out and try to round up the votes of your colleagues. This is a decision that's made purely by the Speaker of the House. So John Boehner, assuming he's Speaker next Congress, there are going to be some members trying to court his favor to get that appointment, but you're not going to see the competitive rivalry in the committee that could make the committee dysfunctional.
Pete, you just mentioned something about Speaker Boehner, and of course the reports about Mike Rogers deciding to leave, making note of the fact that Congressman Rogers, considered a staunch ally of Speaker Boehner, in terms of the Speaker maintaining his own popularity in the conference, the House Republican Conference, does the departure of Mike Rogers in any way affect the Speaker's relationship with the rest of the House Republican Conference?
No, I don't think so. I think in some ways John Boehner was very much supporting Mike Rogers and his work on the Intelligence Committee. But again, when you get 188 of your colleagues who are calling for an independent investigation, saying that the work of the Intelligence Committee, the Armed Services Committee, government oversight, and foreign affairs, that has not been an effective way to get to the bottom of Benghazi and what happened there, I think that sends kind of a clear message to the Speaker that maybe you need to do something else here and create kind of this super investigative committee. But I think Mike Rogers leaving, as good a job as he's done on the Intel Committee, as good a relationship as he has with John Boehner, I don't think says anything about the future of John Boehner and whether he'll run for re-election and whether he comes back as Speaker or not.
Well, let's talk about the future for Mike Rogers. Pete, you and I, Johnny B. made mention of it. We've transitioned out of the Congress. In my case, it was out of necessity, finishing second in the 2006 midterms. You were able to leave on your own terms, choosing not to run for re-election. Now Mike Rogers has chosen that path as well, retiring as an undefeated member of Congress. While he is leaving the door open, perhaps to public office in the future, what advice would you have transitioning from that sensitive role of House Intelligence Committee chairman to what is going to be a very public job in the private sector on a nationally syndicated talk radio program?
I mean, I think, number one, enjoy the last 8 months that you've got in Congress. You're sitting in one of the most important jobs in Washington, in the House of Representatives. Go out, get everything you can, enjoy the last 8 months in that position. The next thing is, hey, Mike, there's a life after Congress. It's a great job, but you're going to enjoy getting back into the private sector. You're going to get your life back. You're going to be relieved from, he came from quite a competitive district, so you're going to be relieved from the constant pressures of getting ready for the next campaign. The fundraising and all of those types of things. Get ready. You're going to enjoy the private sector. You're going to get your life back. Enjoy your life with your wife and with your kids.
Pete, you mentioned the district, and it is true. When Mike Rogers ran for Congress the first time around, that district in Michigan was hotly contested. It was a very close race. Now, political prognosticators say it's a safe Republican seat. Does this announcement coming at this time, and indeed earlier, while there was speculation that Mike Rogers' brother Bill might run, the chairman himself mentioned very prominently former state senator Bishop as really being the next candidate. So I'm just wondering, given your knowledge of politics in Michigan, do you see this now as a safer Republican seat than, or like the national prognosticators have classified it?
Yeah, I think it's a safe Republican seat with redistricting. I think we've gone through 2 cycles of redistricting, so that seat has become more Republican. I think you came in with Dick Chrysler, so it was a Republican seat, then it was a Democrat seat, and Mike Rogers won it by with just under 600 votes. His first election had a tough re-elect, but with the 2 redistricting, cycles. It's been made into a more favorable Republican seat. I think Mike also built up that seat and built up the Republican base. And then finally, this is going to be a good Republican year in Michigan. We've got a good governor who's got a solid track record, who's going to get reelected. We've got a good candidate for the U.S. Senate. Carl Levin is retiring. We've got a good shot at picking up that Senate seat. So the top of the ticket's going to be a very strong Republican ticket. We're going to keep that seat.
Awesome, Pete. Great to hear from you. Good to get his perspective as a former chairman
Absolutely.
of that committee and also a fellow Michigander.
That's right. And one of my old colleagues, he always shoots straight.
Yes, he does. Great to have you, Pete. We'll check back in with you periodically on all these stories develop.
Good.
And we want to hear from everybody at home, too. You can reach out to us on social media. Here are our contact information. You can reach us at Twitter at Newsmax TV, hashtag America's Forum. Find us on email, connect at newsmaxtv.com, or on Facebook, facebook.com/NewsmaxTV.
Tonight.